Welcome back to another episode of Cheating Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Auction. The spotlight hit my face like a physical blow. Next to me, my 11-year-old son Liam flinched, his small hand tightening in mine. The wedding reception fell silent for a moment before my ex-wife, Diana, laughed into the microphone. "Everyone, here's my single ex-husband and his broke little boy." Her voice echoed through the elegant ballroom of the Willowbrook Country Club. "Anyone want to bid on this set?" The crowd of 300 guests erupted in laughter. I stood frozen, watching Diana in her designer wedding gown, her new husband Preston Wells at her side, both glowing with malicious triumph. "Let's start at $0, shall we?" Preston added, adjusting his custom tuxedo and flashing his perfect veneers. I felt Liam's body begin to tremble as tears welled in his eyes. The spotlight remained fixed on us, prisoners in its harsh glare. I'd only come to drop off Liam for his promised role in the ceremony, a role that had mysteriously disappeared from the program. Now I understood why we'd been invited at all. As whispers and chuckles rippled through the crowd, someone in the back slowly raised their hand. The room quieted as all eyes turned to see who would participate in this cruel game. A tall man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit stepped forward. I recognized him immediately, Russell Montgomery, the billionaire tech investor and my former business partner. $1 million, Russell announced, his voice carrying effortlessly across the silent room. But not for the set, just for 5 minutes of Vincent's time. Diana's smile faltered. Preston's jaw tightened. "This is a private celebration," Preston began, but Russell cut him off. $2 million then. Cash. Right now. Russell withdrew his phone. "I can transfer it this second." I placed my hand on Liam's shoulder and guided him toward the exit. "We're leaving," I whispered. Russell followed us out, ignoring the stunned murmurs behind us. In the parking lot, he caught up to us. "Vincent Bishop. It's been 8 years." I helped Liam into my modest sedan before turning to face Russell. "What do you want, Montgomery?" "I've been looking for you. You disappeared after everything." He glanced at Liam. "We need to talk. Something big is happening with Quantumverse Technologies. I left that life behind." 5 minutes. Real offer. $2 million for a conversation. I laughed bitterly. Money can't fix what happened. "No," Russell agreed, "but revenge might." As we drove away, Liam finally spoke through his tears. "Why did Mom do that, Dad? Why does she hate us?" I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. For years, I protected Liam from the truth, maintained a careful neutrality for his sake. But something had changed tonight. The carefully constructed walls I'd built around my past were crumbling. "Sometimes, Liam," I said quietly, "people choose wealth and status over love and loyalty." 8 years ago, I had been Vincent Bishop, co-founder of Quantumverse Technologies, a quantum computing startup poised to revolutionize the industry. Then came the betrayal that cost me everything. My company, my fortune, and eventually my family. I'd rebuilt a modest life as a freelance software developer, determined to give Liam stability. But tonight had changed everything. Diana and Preston had crossed a line, and Russell's unexpected appearance offered something I denied myself for too long, a chance at justice. As we arrived at our small apartment, I made a decision. The careful, restrained man I'd forced myself to become was no more. Vincent Bishop, the real Vincent Bishop, was back. Chapter 2. Fallen Kingdom. 8 years earlier, I stood at the pinnacle of success. Quantumverse Technologies had just closed its Series C funding round at $200 million, and our revolutionary quantum encryption algorithm had caught the attention of major tech corporations and defense contractors alike. Diana and I lived in a modernist mansion in the hills above Silicon Valley. We'd met in college. She was studying business administration while I pursued dual degrees in computer science and quantum physics. She believed in me when everyone said my ideas were too theoretical, too far ahead of their time. "To impossible dreams," she'd toast, clinking her champagne glass against mine the night we got the first seed investment. Russell Montgomery became my partner early on. His venture capital connections and business acumen complemented my technical expertise. We were unstoppable, 3 young visionaries rewriting the future. The beginning of the end came subtly. Diana started attending more social events without me. Networking, she explained. Someone has to be the face of our success while you're coding. I didn't see the pattern until it was too late. Board meetings where I was outvoted. Whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. New investors I hadn't vetted or even met. Then came the coup. Russell called an emergency board meeting while I was presenting at a conference in Tokyo. By the time my plane landed in San Francisco, I'd been voted out of my own company. My access badges didn't work. Security escorted me from the building. It's just business, Russell told me in the parking lot. The investors want a more experienced CEO. You'll still be the majority shareholder. But that was another lie. Through a complex series of dilutions and options I'd never authorized, my controlling stake had been reduced to just 15%. Even worse, they'd filed patents under the company's name for work I'd developed independently before Quantumverse existed. When I arrived home that night, Preston Wells' Aston Martin was in our driveway. Preston was Quantumverse's new chief legal counsel, handpicked by Russell. He'd been working with us for just 6 months, but apparently, he'd been working on Diana for longer. It's not what you think, Diana said, though it was exactly what I thought. Preston's helping me understand your contract options. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. The prenuptial agreement I'd insisted on, before we had any wealth to protect, backfired spectacularly. It hadn't been updated to reflect our new financial reality, and Diana's lawyers tore it apart. She walked away with half my remaining shares, our home, and primary custody of 3-year-old Liam. I spent the next year in court battles, trying to reclaim my intellectual property and my son. But Preston had connections throughout the legal system, and Quantumverse had resources I couldn't match. Each court appearance depleted my dwindling funds until finally, I had to make a choice: continue fighting a losing battle or ensure Liam had at least one stable parent. I withdrew from the tech world completely, changed my appearance, moved to Portland, started freelancing under a different name. I saw Liam on scheduled visitations and built a simple life focused solely on being the father he needed. For 8 years, I'd suppressed my rage, convinced myself that peace was better for Liam than justice. I'd even maintained a coldly civil relationship with Diana and Preston after they married 5 years ago, dutifully delivering Liam for weekend visits to their mansion. But tonight had shattered that facade. They hadn't just humiliated me. They deliberately hurt my son, made him cry for their amusement, turned him into a punchline. As Liam finally fell asleep on the sofa, exhausted from crying, I opened my laptop and typed a name I hadn't searched in years: Russell Montgomery. His company biography appeared, listing his current position: CEO of Quantumverse Technologies, now a publicly traded corporation worth billions. Their flagship product? Quantum encryption systems based on my original algorithms. I clicked through to recent news. Quantumverse was facing a hostile takeover attempt from Meridian Global, a Chinese-backed conglomerate. The battle had turned ugly, with Meridian alleging serious security flaws in Quantumverse encryption systems. Suddenly, Russell's reappearance made sense. He didn't want revenge, he needed my help. I closed the laptop and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. For years, I'd buried Vincent Bishop, the brilliant, ambitious inventor. Now it was time to resurrect him, but with one crucial difference. This version wouldn't make the mistake of trust. Chapter 3: Chess Pieces. Russell Montgomery wasn't accustomed to being kept waiting. Yet here he was, sitting in a nondescript coffee shop in downtown Portland for the past 20 minutes, checking his watch compulsively. When I finally entered, I barely resembled the man he'd betrayed. Gone was the designer wardrobe and carefully styled appearance of a tech wunderkind. The Vincent Bishop who slid into the booth wore faded jeans, a plain Henley, and carried himself with the unassuming posture of someone accustomed to being overlooked. "You're late," Russell said. "And you're desperate." I nodded to the manila envelope on the table between us. "Otherwise, you wouldn't be here." Russell pushed the envelope toward me. $2 million, as promised. Cashier's check. I left it untouched. "Why now, Russell?" 8 years of silence, and suddenly you crash my ex-wife's wedding to find me. His expensive suit couldn't hide the exhaustion etched into his face. Quantumverse is in trouble. Meridian Global found vulnerabilities in our encryption. Their engineers claim the algorithms were improperly implemented. They were, I replied calmly, watching his expression shift. The versions you're using are incomplete. I designed fail-safes into my original work that weren't in the code you stole. Russell leaned forward. We didn't steal anything. You signed contracts. Save it for the shareholders, I interrupted. What exactly do you want from me? Consultation. Fix the vulnerabilities before Meridian uses them to tank our stock price further. The board will approve any compensation package you name. I finally picked up the envelope, opened it, and verified the check. This gets you 1 hour today. After that, my rate is $5 million per week, paid in advance, non-refundable. Russell's jaw tightened. That's extortion. No, I said, tucking the check into my jacket. It's the friend discount. Meridian would pay 10 times that for what I know. The threat hung between us. Russell had built his empire on my stolen work I could now dismantle with a single phone call. Fine, he said finally. But I need a guarantee you'll actually help, not sabotage us. You'll have to trust me, I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. The way I trusted you. After Russell left to make arrangements, I called my neighbor, Mrs. Abernathy, to ask if Liam could stay with her for a few hours. Then I drove to the bank, deposited Russell's check, and made 3 phone calls I'd rehearsed all morning. The first was to Naomi Fletcher, my former attorney who'd lost her practice fighting Quantumverse legal team. She now worked as a paralegal in a small firm, her career as derailed as mine. Vincent, she answered, disbelief in her voice. Is it really you? I need your help, Naomi. It involves Russell Montgomery and Quantumverse. Her laugh was bitter. I can't afford to go another round with them. You won't have to. I've got funding this time. $2 million to start. The silence stretched before she responded. What's the plan? Justice, I said simply. Are you in? Her answer came without hesitation. When do we start? My second call went to Derek Sullivan, once my lead developer at Quantumverse. After the takeover, he'd been gradually sidelined until he quit. His brilliant mind was now wasted coding shopping apps for a mid-sized tech firm. Bishop? Man, I figured you were dead or in Tibet becoming a monk or something. Neither. I'm putting together a team. Interested? Depends, he said cautiously. What's the project? Finishing what we started at Quantumverse. Proper implementation of the original algorithms. His voice dropped to a whisper. Those bastards are still using your crippled code? After all this time? Apparently. And now they're paying me to fix it. Derek's laugh echoed through the phone. Oh, that's beautiful. Count me in. My final call was the riskiest. Mitchell Grayson, Diana's father. Once my most ardent supporter, he distanced himself during the divorce, unwilling to choose sides between his daughter and the son-in-law he'd once treated like his own child. Vincent. His voice was guarded when he answered. This is unexpected. I was at Diana's wedding last night, I said, cutting straight to the point. Did she tell you what happened? The long pause told me everything. She mentioned there was an incident. She and Preston publicly humiliated your grandson, made him cry for entertainment. Mitchell's breathing changed. Despite their estrangement, I knew he adored Liam. Explain. I recounted the evening's events exactly as they'd occurred. When I finished, Mitchell's voice had acquired the cold, precise tone I remembered from his days as a venture capitalist. What do you need from me? Information, I replied. About Preston's finances, his clients, his vulnerabilities. You're planning something. Yes. Another long pause. Diana is still my daughter. And Liam is your grandson. I'm not asking you to choose sides. I'm asking if you want to protect him. His sigh was heavy with resignation. Give me 3 days. As I hung up, I accessed an email account I hadn't used in years and composed a message to a very specific recipient. The subject line read, regarding Quantumverse encryption vulnerabilities. The chess pieces were moving into position. Chapter 4, Trojan Code. Quantumverse Technologies headquarters had changed since I'd last walked its halls. The modest building where we'd started had been replaced by a gleaming 40-story tower in downtown San Francisco, with QV emblazoned in glowing blue letters visible for miles. Security was tight. I surrendered my phone, submitted to a biometric scan, and signed multiple NDAs before being escorted to the executive floor. Russell was waiting in the boardroom, along with Preston Wells and 3 people I didn't recognize. Preston's smile vanished when he saw me. What is he doing here? Russell kept his expression neutral. Vincent is consulting on the Meridian situation. Are you insane? Preston's face flushed. After that stunt at the wedding? That stunt, Russell replied coldly, was your doing, not his. And right now, We need him more than he needs us. Preston's jaw worked silently before he gathered his papers. I'll need to review any agreements before he touches our systems. Already handled, Russell said, sliding a thick contract across the table. Board approved this morning. As Preston scanned the document, his face paled. 10 million? For 2 weeks of work? This is non-negotiable, I interrupted, meeting his gaze directly for the first time. Consider it hazard pay for having to breathe the same air as you. The others in the room shifted uncomfortably. Russell made swift introductions. The current CTO, head of security, and lead quantum engineer. None had been with the company when I founded it. Let's get to work, I said, turning to the whiteboard. Show me where things stand. For the next 4 hours, I immersed myself in their systems, identifying the vulnerabilities Meridian had discovered and several more they hadn't yet found. I sketched diagrams, wrote equations, and outlined solutions that had the engineers frantically taking notes. This is remarkable, the CTO admitted grudgingly. The approach is completely different from our current implementation. Because it's the correct implementation, I replied without looking up. What you've been using is fundamentally flawed. By late afternoon, I had what I needed, complete access to their systems and a clear understanding of their weaknesses. Russell looked simultaneously relieved and suspicious. How quickly can you implement these fixes? He asked. I named a timeline just tight enough to seem challenging but achievable. I'll need my own secure development environment and direct access to the core repositories. No oversight, no code reviews until I'm finished. Preston, who had remained silent throughout the technical discussions, finally spoke up. Absolutely not. That violates every security protocol we have. Then find someone else to save your company, I replied, standing to leave. Russell placed a hand on Preston's arm, squeezing hard enough to make him wince. We'll make the arrangements. He turned to the CTO, set up whatever he needs. As the meeting adjourned, Russell asked me to stay behind. When we were alone, he locked the door. Whatever game you're playing, Vincent, remember that you signed ironclad contracts today. If you sabotage us, you'll what? I asked quietly. Sue me? I have nothing left to take. You have your son. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I stepped closer to Russell, close enough that I could see the tiny blood vessels in his eyes. Threaten my son again, and I'll burn this company to the ground so thoroughly that even the ashes won't remain. Are we clear? Something in my expression must have convinced him I meant every word. He stepped back. Just fix the vulnerabilities. That's all we're asking. I'll fix them, I promised. Exactly as they should have been implemented 8 years ago. That night, I checked into the luxury hotel suite Quantumverse was paying for and set up my own equipment alongside what they provided. Derek Sullivan arrived around midnight, having taken an immediate leave of absence from his job. Man, I forgot how intense you get when you're coding, he commented, watching me work. You've barely blinked in an hour. I'm not just coding, I replied, fingers flying across the keyboard. I'm creating our insurance policy. Derek peered at the screens. Wait, are you embedding a kill switch in the encryption algorithm? Several, actually. And they'll only activate under very specific conditions. He whistled low. Remind me never to piss you off. What's the trigger? I explained the elegant trap I was building. Code that would function perfectly under testing, but contain dormant vulnerabilities that could be remotely activated when needed. They'll never find it, I assured him. Not in a million years of code reviews. Derek looked troubled. This goes beyond getting even, Vincent. This could destroy the company. That's the point, I said, finally looking up from the screen. They took everything from me. Now I'm taking everything from them. Including Diana? He asked carefully. My fingers paused over the keyboard. Diana made her choice 8 years ago. She cemented it last night. Derek scratched his beard thoughtfully. Just make sure this is about justice, not just revenge. There's a difference. I didn't answer, returning my attention to the code. But his words lingered as I worked through the night, planting digital time bombs that would detonate with precision when the moment was right. The next morning, Naomi arrived with updates from her end. She'd begun quietly investigating Quantumverse patent filings and found irregularities that could potentially invalidate their intellectual property claims. There's more, she said, handing me a sealed envelope. Your friend Mitchell came through. Preston's been busy with some questionable clients. Inside was documentation showing that Preston's law firm had represented several Chinese technology companies with direct ties to Meridian Global. The apparent conflict of interest was glaring. "This is perfect," I said, scanning the documents. "Does Russell know?" "Unlikely. Preston's kept his client list compartmentalized. Different partners handle different accounts." I added the information to my growing arsenal. The pieces were falling into place faster than I'd anticipated. On the third day, I received an unexpected visitor at my hotel suite. Diana arrived unannounced, coldly beautiful in an expensive suit, her expression a careful mask of neutrality. "Vincent," she said when I opened the door. "We need to talk." I stepped aside to let her enter, noting how her eyes widened slightly at the array of computers and diagrams covering every surface. "Preston tells me you're charging an obscene amount to fix some code problems," she began, remaining standing. "I find your timing interesting." "Do you?" I replied, returning to my work. "I find your wedding entertainment choices interesting." Her posture stiffened. "That was unfortunate. Preston had too much champagne." "And you? Were you too drunk to defend your son when he broke down crying?" Diana's perfectly manicured nails dug into her palms. "Don't pretend this is about Liam. This is about you seizing an opportunity for a payday." I laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "A payday? Diana, in the 8 years since you and Russell destroyed my career, do you know how much Quantumverse has made using my algorithms? Billions. And you're concerned about a $10 million consulting fee." "What I'm concerned about," she said, stepping closer, "is your sudden reappearance in our lives. Whatever grievances you're nursing." "Grievances?" I interrupted, finally facing her fully. "Is that what we're calling it now?" For a moment, her composure cracked, revealing a glimpse of the woman I'd once loved. "Vincent, we were kids playing in a world of sharks. Russell did what was necessary for the company to survive. And sleeping with Preston? Was that necessary too?" The question hung between us, 8 years too late. Diana recovered quickly, her expression hardening again. "I came here to suggest we move forward civilly, for Liam's sake. But I see you're determined to live in the past." As she turned to leave, I called after her. "How much of Quantumverse do you still own, Diana?" She paused at the door. 12%. "What? You might want to diversify," I suggested. "Very soon." After she left, I called Derek. "Accelerate the timeline. We move in 3 days." Chapter 5. King's Gambit. Russell Montgomery's annual charity gala was the highlight of Silicon Valley's social calendar. Held at his palatial estate in Woodside, it attracted tech billionaires, venture capitalists, and politicians eager to be seen supporting the Montgomery Foundation's environmental initiatives. This year's theme was Quantum Future, a celebration of Quantumverse's supposed breakthroughs in sustainable computing. The irony wasn't lost on me as I adjusted my tuxedo in the mirror of my hotel bathroom. "You clean up nice," Naomi commented, elegant in a midnight blue gown. "Hard to believe you've spent the last week sleeping 3 hours a night." "Revenge is a powerful stimulant," I replied, checking the secure phone in my pocket one last time. "Everyone ready?" She nodded. "Derek's already there, working the security system. Mitchell arrived with his wife 10 minutes ago. And our special guest just confirmed." The special guest was Lin Wei, Meridian Global's chief negotiator in the attempted takeover. Naomi had arranged a private meeting at the gala through channels that couldn't be traced back to me. "Remember," I cautioned as we left for the event, "tonight is reconnaissance only. We observe, we listen, we plant seeds. Nothing more." Russell's estate was illuminated like a modern palace, with quantum-themed light installations transforming the grounds into a glowing wonderland. Security was tight but selective. Names on the guest list passed through with minimal scrutiny, while the merely wealthy or influential were subjected to additional verification. "Vincent Bishop and guest," I told the attendant at the entrance pavilion. His eyes widened slightly as he checked his tablet. "Of course, Mr. Bishop. Mr. Montgomery has placed you on the VIP list." We followed a luminescent path to the main house, where hundreds of guests mingled in the sprawling ballroom and adjoining gardens. Floating holographic displays showcased Quantumverse's latest innovations, all derivative of my original work. "There's Diana," Naomi murmured, nodding toward a cluster of people near the central bar. My ex-wife was radiant in white, her arm linked with Preston's as they laughed with a group of investors. Liam stood nearby, uncomfortable in a child-sized tuxedo, clearly bored by the adult conversation. And there's our host, I noted as Russell descended the grand staircase to thunderous applause. He made a brief welcome speech, thanking everyone for supporting the Foundation's work and promising groundbreaking announcements later in the evening. His gaze swept the room, pausing fractionally when he spotted me. Time to mingle, I told Naomi. Meet me in the East Garden in 30 minutes for the way introduction. I made my way through the crowd, accepting congratulations from strangers who'd heard I was back at Quantumverse. Many were former colleagues who'd prospered in my absence, their initial discomfort at seeing me quickly replaced by curiosity about my sudden return. Dad, Liam broke away from Diana's group, weaving through the crowd to reach me. I knelt to embrace him, inhaling the scent of the expensive cologne someone had inappropriately daubed on my 11-year-old. Hey, buddy, you look very sharp. He grimaced. I hate this monkey suit. Mom says I have to wear it until 9, then I can go to the kids' room upstairs. Over his shoulder, I saw Diana watching us, her expression unreadable. Preston was deep in conversation with someone I recognized as a senior Defense Department official. How about we get some food? I suggested. Those mini pizzas look pretty good. As Liam and I navigated the buffet, I spotted Mitchell Grayson observing us from across the room. He raised his champagne glass slightly, our prearranged signal that Preston had taken the bait. Right on cue, my phone vibrated with a text from Derek, security cameras looping in the study. You have 10 minutes. Liam, I need to step away for just a few minutes, I told my son. Important grown-up business. Will you be okay? He nodded, mouth full of pizza. Mom said I could play games on her iPad after I finish eating. I ruffled his hair and made my way toward the mansion's east wing, careful to appear unhurried. The study was locked, but the keycard Derek had programmed worked perfectly. Inside, the room was dark except for the glow of computer monitors. I inserted a specialized drive into Preston's computer and initiated the download. While it worked, I photographed documents from his desk with my phone. The drive beeped softly when it finished, and I pocketed it just as the door opened. I thought I might find you here, Russell said, closing the door behind him. Old habits die hard, don't they? I kept my expression neutral, just looking for a quiet place to take a call. The ballroom's a bit loud. In my private study, behind a locked door, he stepped closer. What are you really doing, Vincent? The same thing you're doing, Russell. Protecting my interests. His laugh was genuine. God, I've missed your directness. Everyone else in this industry is so careful. Careful gets you nowhere in quantum computing. True. He leaned against the desk. That's why I knew I needed you back. The work you've done this week, it's brilliant. Beyond what anyone else at Quantumverse could have accomplished. Because they're working with fragments, I replied. Pieces of a whole they don't understand. Russell studied me for a long moment. You know, I've thought about reaching out to you for years. The way things ended. Don't, I interrupted. Don't pretend you have regrets. But I do, he insisted. Not about the business decisions, those were necessary, but about how it affected you personally. Diana, Liam. My hands itched to grab him by the throat, but I maintained my composure. Water under the bridge. I'm here now, doing what you're paying me to do. And what about after? He asked. When the Meridian threat is neutralized, would you consider coming back permanently? As Chief Innovation Officer, perhaps? The offer took me by surprise. Why would you want that? Because you're still the best, he said simply. And I'm tired of fighting old battles. Aren't you? Before I could answer, the door opened again. Preston stood in the doorway, his expression darkening when he saw us. There you are, he said to Russell. The defense secretary's waiting to speak with you. Russell nodded. We'll continue this conversation later, Vincent. After they left, I waited 30 seconds before exiting the study. In the East Garden, Naomi was already seated with Lin Wei, a shrewd-looking woman in her 50s whose severe black dress contrasted with the colorful attire of the other guests. Mr. Bishop, Wei greeted me in lightly accented English. Your attorney says you have information that might interest Meridian. I sat across from her. I understand your takeover attempt has stalled. Temporarily. Her smile was razor-thin. Quantumverse stock has stabilized since your return was announced. What if I told you that stabilization is based on a false premise? Wei's eyes narrowed. Explain. I outlined the vulnerabilities in Quantumverse encryption, not the ones I'd been hired to fix, but deeper, more fundamental flaws that would persist regardless of my patches. I can provide documentation, I concluded. Proof that their core technology has been compromised for years. And why would you betray your own company? She asked bluntly. It's not my company. Not anymore. I leaned forward. I want what you want. Quantumverse broken apart and sold in pieces. Wei considered this. Such information would be valuable. What is your price? Not money, I replied. I want 3 things. First, when you acquire Quantumverse, you restore my original patents to me. Second, you guarantee positions for a list of former employees who were unfairly pushed out. And third, you ensure that Russell Montgomery and Preston Wells are completely removed from the industry. Permanently. She studied me for a long moment. You've thought this through carefully. For 8 years. Wei nodded once. Send the proof. If it's as significant as you claim, we have a deal. As she left, Naomi touched my arm. Vincent, are you sure about this? Once we send that documentation, there's no going back. I passed the point of no return the moment I walked into Quantumverse offices. I replied. Everything since has been inevitable. The evening's formalities were beginning. Guests gathered in the ballroom as Russell took the stage to make his promised announcements. Diana and Preston stood nearby, the picture of corporate royalty. Ladies and gentlemen, Russell began. Tonight marks a new chapter for Quantumverse Technologies. I'm proud to announce our latest breakthrough. Quantum encryption so secure, it will revolutionize global data protection. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. I watched impassively, knowing that in less than 24 hours, that claim would be exposed as catastrophically false. Additionally, Russell continued, I'm pleased to share that Vincent Bishop, one of our original founders, has returned to Quantumverse as our new Chief Innovation Officer. The announcement sent a ripple of surprise through the audience. All eyes turned to me, including Diana's and Preston's, their expressions a mixture of shock and alarm. I raised my champagne glass in acknowledgement, smiling as though this had been the plan all along. Russell beamed, clearly believing he'd outmaneuvered me by making the announcement publicly. Little did he know, he'd just handed me the final piece I needed for my endgame. Chapter 6, Sacrificial Pawns. The morning after the gala, Quantumverse stock opened 10 points higher. Financial analysts attributed the surge to my return and Russell's announcement of breakthrough encryption technology. By noon, the company's market cap had increased by nearly $3 billion. I watched the ticker symbol scroll across my hotel room's television as I finalized my code implementation. Derek paced nervously, glancing repeatedly at his watch. Wei should have received the documentation an hour ago, he said. Why hasn't she made a move? Patience, I replied, not looking up from my screen. She's verifying everything first. Standard corporate due diligence. Naomi entered with coffee and pastries. Mitchell called. Preston's in damage control mode, trying to figure out how Russell could announce your appointment without board approval. Let them fight, I said, accepting a cup. It works to our advantage. My phone rang, Russell Montgomery. I put it on speaker. The board is in an uproar, he began without preamble. Preston's threatening legal action over last night's announcement. I'm devastated, I replied dryly. This isn't a joke, Vincent. I need you at headquarters immediately to finalize your contract before Preston convinces them to rescind the offer. I glanced at Derek, who gave me a thumbs up. The code was ready. I'll be there in an hour, I told Russell. And Russell? Tell Diana to be there too. Diana? Why? Because as a significant shareholder, she should be part of this discussion. Don't you agree? His hesitation spoke volumes. Fine. 1 hour. After hanging up, I turned to Naomi. Time for phase 2. Is everything in place? She nodded. The SEC filing is prepared. Anonymous whistleblower protocol, as we discussed. I verified the account routing for the funds transfer. Good. I closed my laptop and stood. Derek, upload the final code package to Quantumverse repository. Make sure it passes all their automated testing. Derek looked troubled. Vincent, once this goes live. I know, I interrupted. No turning back. The drive to Quantumverse headquarters gave me time to center myself. For 8 years, I'd suppressed the part of me that demanded justice. Now that part was in control, calculating, and merciless. Security met me in the lobby, escorting me directly to the executive floor where Russell waited with Diana and Preston. The tension in the room was palpable. This is irregular. Preston began immediately. A C-suite appointment requires full board approval, which wasn't obtained. A technicality, Russell waved dismissively. The executive committee has provisional authority. Not for this. Preston threw a folder on the table, and particularly not for someone with Vincent's history. Diana remained silent, watching me with wary eyes. I smiled pleasantly. My history? You mean as the original creator of the technology that made all of you wealthy? That history, your technology, Preston emphasized, which you contractually signed over to the company. Under duress and through fraudulent misrepresentation, I countered. But that's ancient history. We're here to discuss the future. Russell tried to regain control of the meeting. I've prepared a compensation package that reflects your value to the company. He slid a document across to me. $5 million base salary, plus options worth approximately $20 million at current market value. I glanced at the numbers without touching the papers. Generous, but I have a counter-proposal. From my briefcase, I withdrew 3 copies of a document Naomi had prepared. I placed one before each of them. What is this? Diana asked, speaking for the first time. A settlement agreement, I explained. In exchange for my permanent return to Quantumverse, I want 3 things. First, restoration of my original patent rights. Second, reinstatement of employees wrongfully terminated during the transition. And third, a public acknowledgement of my foundational role in the company's technology. Preston scoffed. Absolutely not. The patents belong to Quantumverse. Actually, I replied calmly, they don't. Not legally. I opened my laptop and turned it to face them. On the screen was documentation proving that the patent applications had been filed with backdated signatures and manipulated timestamps. That can't be right, Russell stuttered, his composure finally cracking. Oh, but it is, I assured him. Along with evidence that Preston's law firm simultaneously represented Chinese interests connected to Meridian Global, a clear conflict of interest that invalidates numerous legal agreements. Preston's face drained of color. Where did you get that information? Does it matter? It's accurate, isn't it? Diana turned to Preston, her expression hardening. Is this true? You represented Chinese clients while handling our legal affairs. Different partners, different departments, he said defensively. No direct conflict. The SEC might disagree, I noted, as might the California Bar Association. Russell's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked up sharply. Meridian just announced a new takeover bid. 15% above our current share price. I checked my watch. Right on schedule. The realization dawned on Russell's face. You're working with them. This meeting, the patent questions, it's all a distraction. Not a distraction, I corrected. Leverage. Diana's eyes narrowed. You promised them something. What? Proof that Quantumverse encryption is fundamentally flawed. That the technology you've sold to banks, governments, and defense contractors has vulnerabilities that could be exploited at any time. Preston stood abruptly. That's market manipulation. Securities fraud. We'll have you arrested. For what? I asked innocently. Providing factual information about faulty products? I've simply disclosed the truth, something you 3 conspicuously failed to do for 8 years. Russell's face had turned ashen. The code you implemented this week fixes the surface vulnerabilities Meridian initially discovered, but the deeper flaws remain, hidden where only I would know to look. Diana's professional mask finally cracked. This isn't just business for you, is it? This is personal. It became personal, I replied, meeting her gaze, the moment you and Preston decided to humiliate our son at your wedding. The room fell silent. Russell looked between us, realization dawning. What did you do? He asked Diana. Before she could answer, Preston's phone rang. The caller ID showed the board chairman's name. Preston answered, listened briefly, then put the phone on speaker. Preston, we've called an emergency board meeting. Meridian's representatives are claiming they have documentation of critical security flaws in our encryption. The stock is in free fall. As if on cue, Russell's computer chimed with alerts. The share price was plummeting, triggering circuit breakers designed to pause trading during extreme volatility. $3 billion in market cap, gone in minutes, I observed. And that's just the beginning. Russell lunged across the table, grabbing my lapels. Fix it. Whatever you've done, undo it now. I removed his hands carefully. I didn't do anything except tell the truth. The vulnerabilities were always there, because you rushed unfinished technology to market. Diana stood, her composure regained. What do you really want, Vincent? This can't just be about destroying the company. It's not, I agreed. It's about justice. Sign the settlement agreement, all three of you. Acknowledge what you did. Make it right. Preston laughed bitterly. You're delusional. Even if we wanted to, the board would never. The board will do whatever is necessary to stop the bleeding, I interrupted. And right now, I'm the only one who can stop it. Russell studied me, a new respect in his eyes. You planned this. All of it. From the moment you showed up at the wedding. No, I corrected. I planned it from the moment you betrayed me 8 years ago. The wedding just accelerated the timeline. Diana picked up the settlement agreement, reading it more carefully. These terms, they're actually reasonable. You're not asking for control of the company. I don't want the company, I said truthfully. I want what's rightfully mine. An acknowledgement of what was taken from me. Preston began to object, but Russell cut him off. We'll sign. All of us. Russell, you can't, Preston started. We have no choice, Russell snapped. Shareholders are already filing lawsuits. The defense contracts will be canceled if these vulnerabilities are confirmed. Vincent is offering us a lifeline. One by one, they signed the agreements. As Diana added her signature last, she looked up at me. Is this really what you wanted? To force us into submission? No, I replied quietly. What I wanted was the life we were building before ambition and greed destroyed it. This is just the closest approximation to justice I could manage. As I gathered the signed documents, my phone vibrated with a text from Naomi. SEC filing complete. Funds transferred. Now, I said, returning the phone to my pocket. I'll need full system access to begin addressing the vulnerabilities before Meridian can exploit them further. Russell made the arrangements immediately. Within an hour, I was set up in a secure development environment, Derek at my side as we implemented the genuine fixes to the encryption algorithms. You did it, Derek murmured as we worked. You actually brought them to their knees. Not yet, I replied, fingers flying across the keyboard. This is just the beginning. Chapter 7. Calculated Collapse. For 3 days, I worked almost continuously, sleeping only when absolutely necessary. Derek and I systematically corrected the flaws in quantum-verse encryption, implementing the algorithms as they should have been from the beginning. Russell hovered anxiously, watching the stock price stabilize as word spread that I was personally addressing the security concerns. Meridian's takeover bid remained on the table, but investor confidence was slowly returning. How much longer? Russell asked on the evening of the 3rd day. We're almost done, I replied, not looking up from my screen. Final testing tonight. Implementation tomorrow morning. He nodded, relief evident in his expression. The board is satisfied with the settlement terms. Your original patents will be restored, and we've prepared a public statement acknowledging your foundational role. And the former employees? Being contacted with reinstatement offers as we speak. I finally looked at him. Then our business is concluded. Russell hesitated. I meant what I said at the gala, Vincent. I want you back permanently. This week has proven how valuable you are to Quantumverse. Let's see how the implementation goes first, I replied noncommittally. After he left, Derek leaned closer. Are we really fixing everything? No hidden kill switches. We're fixing exactly what I said we would, I assured him. The encryption will be secure. But, I smiled slightly. But encryption is only one component of their system. That night, after Derek left for his hotel, I remained in the development lab, making one final adjustment to the code. Not to the encryption algorithms. Those were now flawless. But to the authentication system that controlled access to Quantumverse's most sensitive client data. The modification was subtle, invisible to standard security scans. A dormant protocol that would activate only under specific conditions, creating a backdoor accessible through credentials I alone possessed. As I committed the final changes and initiated the deployment sequence, my phone buzzed with a text from Naomi. Everything set for tomorrow. Mitchell confirms Diana's participation. The next morning, Quantumverse issued a press release announcing the successful remediation of all security vulnerabilities. The stock surged in pre-market trading, recovering much of its lost value. Financial analysts praised the company's swift response and transparency. Russell was jubilant when I arrived at headquarters. The Defense Department just reconfirmed their contracts, he announced, and Meridian is withdrawing their takeover bid. Congratulations, I replied. Crisis averted. Thanks to you. He clapped me on the shoulder. The board is holding a special session this afternoon to formalize your appointment as CIO. They're unanimously in favor now. I nodded, checking my watch. I'll be there. First, I need to meet with the technical documentation team to ensure everything is properly recorded. Instead of going to the documentation department, I took the elevator to the executive floor where Diana maintained an office as a major shareholder. She was alone, reviewing financial reports. "Vincent," she greeted me coolly. "Russell tells me you've saved the company." "For now," I replied, taking a seat across from her. She studied me with the calculating gaze I remembered from our marriage. "You could have destroyed us completely. Why didn't you? Would you believe me if I said it wasn't my goal?" "Honestly, no." She set down her pen. "You've changed, Vincent. There's a hardness to you now. 8 years of watching others profit from my work while I struggled to rebuild a life for Liam and myself will do that." Diana's expression softened slightly. "About the wedding, I should have stopped it. What Preston did was cruel and unnecessary." "Yes, it was." I met her gaze directly. "Which is why I'm here. Not just for myself, but for Liam." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm petitioning for full custody." The color drained from her face. "You can't be serious." "Completely." I placed a folder on her desk. "Mitchell has agreed to testify about the wedding incident and other instances of emotional harm, plus documentation of Preston's increasingly erratic behavior around Liam." "My father," Diana whispered, betrayal evident in her voice. "He's supporting you in this?" "He's supporting what's best for his grandson," I corrected. "Which, increasingly, isn't life with you and Preston." She opened the folder with trembling hands, scanning the affidavits and legal documentation Naomi had prepared. "This would never hold up in court." "It doesn't need to," I replied calmly. "Because you're going to agree to it voluntarily." Diana laughed bitterly. "Why would I ever do that?" "Because at 3 o'clock this afternoon, Quantumverse will announce my appointment as Chief Innovation Officer. By 3:15, anonymous evidence will be presented to the board revealing that you and Preston have been secretly selling technical data to Meridian Global for years." Her laughter died instantly. "That's a lie." "Is it?" I withdrew my phone and played a recording. Preston's voice discussing proprietary information with someone whose accent was unmistakably Chinese. "This is from his computer. There's more, much more, all pointing to both of you. You fabricated this," she accused, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. "The evidence is compelling enough that the board will have no choice but to order an investigation. Your shares will be frozen. Preston's law license will be suspended pending criminal charges. And in the midst of that chaos, how much attention do you think either of you will be able to give Liam?" Diana's professional facade crumbled entirely. "You wouldn't do this. Not to Liam." "I'm doing it for Liam," I corrected gently. "He deserves a stable home with a parent who puts his needs first. Always." She stared at the custody agreement for a long moment. "And if I sign, the evidence never surfaces. You and Preston remain wealthy, respected members of society. You'll have generous visitation rights with Liam. Everyone wins. Except me," she whispered. "I lose my son. The way I lost my company," I replied. "The difference is, you'll still see him." I was shut out completely. Diana picked up her pen, hesitated, then signed the agreement with a shaking hand. "I do love him, Vincent. Despite what you might think." "I know you do," I said, taking the signed document. "Just not enough to choose him over everything else." As I stood to leave, she asked, "Was any of it real?" "Us." I paused at the door. "Yes." Until it wasn't. The board meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m. At 2:45, I met Russell in his office to review the announcement protocols. "The stock's up 15 points today," he reported happily. "The financial press is calling it the comeback of the decade." "For now," I agreed, accepting the glass of scotch he offered. Russell raised his own glass. "To second chances." I clinked glasses but didn't drink. "Before we go in there, I need to know something. 8 years ago, when you forced me out, was it just business? Or was it personal too?" His smile faltered slightly. "Does it matter now?" "It matters to me." Russell sighed, setting down his glass. "It was business, initially. The investors wanted someone with more experience, someone they understood. You were too brilliant, too unpredictable." He paused. "But then it became personal when you wouldn't accept the change gracefully. When you fought back." "And Diana? Was that your idea too?" His expression hardened. Diana made her own choices. She saw which way the wind was blowing and adjusted her sails accordingly. Like you're doing now, I observed. When Meridian threatened, you suddenly remembered my value. That's how business works, Vincent. Surely you understand that by now. I nodded slowly. I do. Better than you know. My phone buzzed, a text from Derek, package delivered. System primed. Russell glanced at his watch. We should head in. The board's waiting. As we walked toward the boardroom, I made a slight detour. One moment. Need to send a quick email confirming the final deployment status. At a vacant workstation, I logged into the system using my temporary credentials. With Russell waiting impatiently nearby, I entered a seemingly innocuous command that activated the dormant protocol I'd embedded the night before. Across Quantumverse Global Network, authentication systems began quietly logging user activities, collecting them in a secure server only I could access. Not encryption vulnerabilities this time, but evidence of what the company's technology had really been used for over the years. All set, I told Russell, rejoining him. The boardroom was filled with expectant faces, Quantumverse directors, major investors, and executive team. Preston sat at the far end, his expression carefully neutral. Diana was noticeably absent. Russell made a brief introduction, praising my contributions and emphasizing the importance of my return to the company's future. The board chairman formally offered me the position of Chief Innovation Officer, with all the accompanying compensation and authority. I accepted the offer with appropriate gratitude, shaking hands and accepting congratulations. For all appearances, the prodigal son had returned, forgiveness granted on all sides. As the meeting concluded, my phone vibrated with an incoming call, the secure line I'd established with Naomi. I excused myself to take it in the hallway. It's done, she reported. The custody agreement has been filed with the court. Diana didn't contest any of the terms. And the other matter? The data collection is underway. Derek says the system is capturing everything. They have no idea. I ended the call and returned to the boardroom, where champagne was being distributed to celebrate the company's triumphant recovery. Russell handed me a glass. To Quantumverse future, he toasted. Stronger than ever. I raised my glass with the others, smiling. To the future. Only I knew what that future would truly hold. Chapter 8. Endgame. 6 months passed. My return to Quantumverse transformed the company's fortunes. Stock prices reached historic highs as we secured major contracts with government agencies and multinational corporations. The encryption vulnerabilities were a distant memory, replaced by industry-wide acclaim for our revolutionary security protocols. On the surface, I was the model executive, innovative, collaborative, and fully committed to the company's success. I worked closely with Russell, providing the technical genius to complement his business acumen. Even Preston gradually lowered his guard, accepting my presence as beneficial to his considerable investment. Meanwhile, Liam flourished in my full custody. We moved from the small Portland apartment to a comfortable house in San Francisco's Marina District. His grades improved, and the therapy I'd arranged helped him process the complicated emotions surrounding his mother's diminished role in his life. Diana adhered scrupulously to the visitation schedule, taking Liam for dinner every Wednesday and alternate weekends. She never mentioned the custody agreement or the evidence I'd used to secure it. We maintained a cordial, distant relationship focused solely on our son's well-being. Beneath this harmonious facade, however, my real work continued. Each night, after Liam was asleep, I reviewed the data captured by my hidden protocol. The authentication logs revealed a disturbing pattern. Quantumverse encryption technology wasn't just being used to protect sensitive information, it was being weaponized. Defense contractors were using our systems to develop offensive cyber capabilities. Authoritarian governments deployed them to monitor dissidents. Financial institutions exploited them to manipulate markets in ways that should have been impossible, all with the knowledge and approval of Quantumverse leadership. I compiled the evidence methodically, building an unassailable case. Derek helped analyze the technical aspects, while Naomi prepared legal documentation that would withstand the most rigorous scrutiny. This is bigger than revenge now, Derek observed one evening as we reviewed the latest findings. This is about preventing genuine harm. It was always about both, I replied. On the anniversary of my return to Quantumverse, Russell hosted a celebration at his estate, smaller and more intimate than the previous year's gala. Only key executives and major shareholders were invited, along with select government officials and investment partners. Diana attended with Preston, both making visible efforts to be pleasant. Liam was there too, proudly showing off the quantum computing project he'd developed for his school's science fair. "He's your son through and through," Diana commented as we watched him explain the principles to an impressed Pentagon official. "All that brilliant potential. He's his own person," I corrected gently. "Better than either of us." The evening progressed with speeches and toasts celebrating Quantumverse's most successful year ever. Russell was particularly effusive in his praise of my contributions, raising his glass to the partnership that should never have been broken. As dessert was served, I excused myself to make a phone call. In Russell's study, the same room where I'd begun my evidence gathering a year earlier, I initiated the final phase of my plan. "Execute," I told Naomi over the secure line. "All channels, simultaneous release." When I returned to the dining room, the atmosphere had changed dramatically. Guests were checking their phones, expressions shifting from confusion to concern. Russell was huddled with Preston, both men looking increasingly agitated. "What's happening?" I asked innocently. Russell glanced up, momentary suspicion crossing his face before he masked it. "Some sort of news breaking about Quantumverse. Probably just another hit piece from our competitors." But it wasn't. It was the comprehensive evidence I'd gathered, released simultaneously to regulatory agencies, law enforcement, and selected journalists. Every misuse of the technology, every ethical breach, every legal violation, documented in irrefutable detail. Within minutes, Russell's security chief entered and whispered urgently in his ear. Russell's face went ashen. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice strained, "I'm afraid we need to cut the evening short. A situation requires my immediate attention." As guests began to leave, I collected Liam and prepared to depart. Russell caught my arm at the door. "Did you know about this?" he demanded, showing me his phone screen. "A breaking news alert about Quantumverse alleged misconduct." "I just saw it," I replied calmly. "Concerning, if true." His eyes narrowed. "If I find out you had anything to do with this, you'll what?" I asked quietly. "Force me out again? Take everything from me? We both know how that ends." I left him standing in the doorway, the realization slowly dawning in his eyes. The next morning, federal agents raided Quantumverse headquarters. Russell, Preston, and several other executives were taken in for questioning. Trading of the company's stock was suspended indefinitely. Diana called, frantic. "What's happening?" "Preston was arrested at our home an hour ago." "Justice," I replied simply. "This is your doing," she whispered, realization dawning. "The evidence they're talking about on the news, you gathered it. I merely exposed the truth. The actions were theirs." Her voice hardened. "You've destroyed everything." "Again." "No, Diana. I've held people accountable. There's a difference." Later that day, I received a visitor at my home, Mitchell Grayson. He looked older than his 65 years, the events of the past day having taken their toll. "You never told me this was your plan," he said as we sat in my living room. "Using me to get custody of Liam was one thing. But this, would you have helped if you'd known?" I asked. He considered this. "No, probably not. That's why I didn't tell you." Mitchell sighed heavily. "Diana's assets are frozen. Preston's facing multiple federal charges. Their lives are effectively over." "Their professional lives," I corrected. "They're both intelligent, resourceful people. They'll adapt." "The way you adapted?" he asked pointedly. I didn't answer directly. "Diana will always be Liam's mother. That won't change. But now she'll have to decide what matters most to her, pursuing wealth and status, or rebuilding a genuine relationship with her son." "And you?" Mitchell studied me carefully. "What happens to Vincent Bishop now that his revenge is complete?" It was a question I'd been asking myself for months. The dormant parts of me, the inventor, the dreamer, the builder, were stirring again, no longer overshadowed by the need for justice. "I move forward," I said finally. "I create something new." 3 days later, as the Quantumverse scandal dominated global headlines, I announced the formation of Bishop Innovations, a technology incubator dedicated to ethical applications of quantum computing. Derek was my first hire, along with several former Quantumverse employees who'd been casualties of the original coup. Russell reached out once, from the temporary release before his trial. You played the long game, his message read. I underestimated you. Again, I didn't respond. Some conversations were finally, mercifully over. Diana, facing her own legal challenges but not criminal charges, requested a meeting to discuss Liam's future. We sat in a quiet cafe, both of us changed by the events of the past year. I won't contest the custody arrangement, she began. You were right. Liam is thriving with you. Thank you, I replied, genuinely surprised by her acceptance. But I want to be part of his life. A real part, not just scheduled visitations. That's up to Liam, I told her. He's old enough to have a say in this. Diana nodded, unexpected tears forming in her eyes. I've lost everything else. I can't lose him too. Then prove it to him, I said, not unkindly. Actions, not promises. As we parted, she asked one final question. Was it worth it? All of this, the planning, the waiting, the calculated destruction. Did it give you peace? I considered her question carefully. The rage that had driven me for 8 years had subsided, replaced not by peace exactly, but by something adjacent to it, a sense of balance restored. It wasn't about peace, I told her. It was about truth. Everything hidden is now revealed. What happens next is up to each of us. Chapter 9, Foundation Stones. 1 year after Quantumverse collapse, I stood at the podium of the International Quantum Computing Conference in Zurich. As the keynote speaker, I addressed an audience of the world's leading scientists, engineers, and technology ethicists. Quantum computing isn't just a technological revolution, I told them. It's a moral one. The power to reshape information systems brings with it profound responsibility, one that Quantumverse abdicated, with catastrophic consequences. The reference to my former company drew murmurs from the crowd. The trials were ongoing, with Russell and Preston both facing lengthy prison sentences for fraud, espionage, and national security violations. The company itself had been dissolved, its assets sold to cover investor losses and legal settlements. Bishop Innovations is founded on a different principle: transparent development of quantum technologies with robust ethical guardrails. Our first product, the Bishop Protocol, provides quantum encryption that cannot be weaponized or misused, while still offering unprecedented security for legitimate applications. The announcement generated enthusiastic applause. In the front row, Liam watched proudly, now 13 and showing remarkable aptitude for both the technical and ethical dimensions of our work. Next to him sat Derek, Naomi, and several key members of our rapidly growing team. After the presentation, a journalist approached me. Mr. Bishop, many have called your story the greatest comeback in tech history. From losing everything to founding what might become the most important quantum computing company in the world. How do you respond to that characterization? I considered the question carefully. It's not a comeback. It's an evolution. Sometimes we need to lose everything to understand what's truly valuable. Later that evening, at the conference reception, I was surprised to see Diana among the attendees. She'd moved to Europe after the scandal, working with a Swiss financial firm at a fraction of her former status and income. Congratulations, she said, keeping a respectful distance. Your presentation was remarkable. Thank you. I gestured to where Liam was animatedly discussing quantum theory with a group of young researchers. He's presenting his own paper tomorrow in the Emerging Scientists Forum. Pride softened her features. He told me, I'm staying for it. An awkward silence fell between us. So much history, so much pain, yet also the indelible connection of our son. Vincent, she said finally, I've been thinking about what you said a year ago. About truth and what comes next. And I'm trying to build something new too. Something honest. She hesitated. I'll never be the mother Liam deserves, but I'm working to be better than I was. I nodded, acknowledging her effort without offering easy absolution. That's all any of us can do. As she moved away, Russell's replacement at the podium caught my attention. Lin Wei, now CEO of a prominent Asian technology consortium. Our eyes met briefly across the room, a silent acknowledgement of promises kept on both sides. The patents she'd helped restore to me formed the foundation of Bishop Innovation's success. My phone vibrated with a text message from Mitchell Grayson, watching the live stream. Proud of both you and Liam. You've built something remarkable from the ashes. As I composed a reply, I reflected on the journey of the past decade. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed me had ultimately forced me to rebuild, not just my career or my finances, but myself. The ruthlessness that drove my revenge had been channeled into something constructive, though I harbored no illusions about forgiveness or redemption. Russell and Preston would serve their sentences. Diana would continue her tentative efforts to reform. The past couldn't be changed or erased, only acknowledged and incorporated into a new foundation. That night, Liam and I walked along Zurich's lakefront, discussing his presentation for the following day. "Dad," he asked suddenly, "are you still angry?" "About what happened with Mom and Quantumverse." I considered deflecting the question, but decided my son deserved honesty. "Not angry exactly, but I haven't forgotten, and I haven't forgiven." He nodded thoughtfully. "Is that why you built that backdoor into the Bishop Protocol? So no one could ever use it against you again?" I stopped walking, surprised by his perception. "You noticed that?" Liam smiled, my smile, in a younger face. "I am your son." "Yes," I admitted. "Trust needs verification. Always." "But you trust me," he said. It wasn't a question. "Completely," I assured him. "You're the one person I've never doubted." We continued walking, the lights of the city reflected in the dark water. The boy who had once cried in a spotlight had grown into a young man of exceptional promise. My revenge had secured his future and restored what was rightfully mine, but it had done something more important too. It had ensured that Liam understood the most valuable lesson I could teach him, that in a world where loyalty was fleeting and trust often misplaced, strength came from clarity of purpose and the willingness to protect what mattered, no matter the cost. "We should head back," I said, checking my watch. "Big day tomorrow." "Dad," Liam asked as we turned toward our hotel, "are you happy now?" The question was simple but profound. Happiness had never been my goal, justice had. But standing here with my son, building something meaningful from the wreckage of betrayal, I felt something that, if not quite happiness, was at least its distant cousin. "I'm content," I told him honestly. And that's enough. It was a new foundation, not built on forgiveness or forgetting, but on the clear-eyed understanding that some debts could never truly be repaid. The ledger had been balanced as much as it ever would be. And in that balance, I had found not peace, but purpose. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.